Hi there, welcome to Lilly-Tree. In this video, let's take a look at the ladder weave. The ladder weave is a great alternative to the corset weave when you want to fill in the space between two wires. It includes straight weaves across that look like a ladder rather than the zigzag of the corset weave. For this, we're using two weaving wires simultaneously. And I'm using two different coloured wires here to help show where each one will go. So we're just going to wrap each wire on one side of the frame. And I'm just wrapping these so both wires will come over the top of the frame inwards. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. So when the weaving wires are level, we can put our first rung in by taking one across to the other side so that it goes down between the two frame wires, then doing the same with the other side. We'll then wrap each side, in this case 3 times, before crossing them again. Just taking each of the weaving wires down between the two frame wires as we move them across. And we can continue in this way to build up the weave for as long as we wish. Now I am using 2 colours of weaving wire here purely for demonstration purposes, but you could use it for the design and get this alternating pattern. So once you've woven a little way, it looks like this. Now, as I mentioned, this has both weaving wires coming over and into the frame. If you have one weaving wire and are starting from the middle, you might do this by starting it at the back of both frame wires and then wrapping out from that point. And incidentally, this also shows how you can vary the width between the wires. So once we've made a few wraps on each side, we're ready to take those weaving wires across, through between the two frame wires, and over to the other side to create our ladder. And this is how it looks from the back. But you may have a different situation for your weaving wires, where we need a second version of the ladder weave. If, for example, you started from the centre of the weaving wire and wrapped around a curve, this gives us one weaving wire coming over the frame into the centre, but the other going under into the centre. And if you took both through the centre as before, they would then tilt one way. Now this could be the look you want, but if you want something more even, you can take one weaving wire over the top of both frame wires, and the other one over the bottom of both frame wires. So I take that weaving wire under both frame wires, and then wrap it around one frame wire several times. Then we'll take the other wire over both frame wires, and wrap that on the opposite side several times. Then we'll take that weaving wire under both frame wires again and wrap several times. And take the other weaving wire over both frame wires and wrap several times. We can continue weaving this way as long as we want. So from the end it looks like an elongated O shape. And it gives a straighter look to the ladder weave. Now I'll just go back to the first sample, and we can vary the look of the weave by varying the number of wraps we make between crossing the wires. So here I'm just going to wrap once around each side before crossing the wires. And this gives a closer look to the weave than the 3 wraps I started with. Or we could wrap 5 times round each wire. To open that weave out a bit. Or even something like 7 times, which will expand it a little bit more. So you can see on here the difference made by 1, 3, 5 and 7 wraps. And you could do even numbers of wraps too. I'm just using these as an example. And for a stretch of wire, we can even experiment with varying this number. So here we have 5 wraps between each crossover, 3 times, alternating with 3 lots of 1 wrap between them. Now let's take a look at weaving a curve. So I'll just bend these wires around. And to get around the curve, we need to continue these crossovers as we have them, but we have a longer wire outside to get round than inside. So similarly to the corset weave, we need to increase the number of wraps on the outside wire. So let's set the wraps on the inner wire to 3 so we can wrap those. Then simply wrap enough times on the outer wire until that cross wire is going straight into the centre of the imaginary circle we're creating. This will vary depending on the curve and the gap between those frame wires, so you just need to judge by eye what looks right. Arguably, the number is easier to determine than the corset weave, as the cross threads are straight, so we can just keep testing. And if you want more help in weaving around a curve, I've got a free PDF on that very subject. You can grab your copy using the link in the description, or in the card above. So once we've wrapped around that curve, just take those wires across one last time. This is what that finished weave looks like. And the process is the same using the second version of the corset weave, just taking those weaving wires over both frame wires and under both frame wires instead, for a straighter look. And in the same way as the corset weave, the ladder weave will fit a varying gap between those 2 wires, even going around the curve. So there you have the various ways to create the ladder weave. And wherever you have the corset weave in a project, you could substitute this to get a different look. I hope you enjoyed the video, and for the lowdown on more wire weaves, head to this playlist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.